Welcome back. Just happened to be weeding the garden and found these weeds that grow practically in everybody's early spring garden. They can be a nuisance, but they can also be edible. You got chickweed. Chickweed is very common and found around every spring garden. Lamb's quarter, which is a pain in the neck. It'll take over your garden within one season if you allow it. When it starts to seed, forget it. And these are actually poor man's spinach. Another one that looks like four-leaf clover or clover really isn't clover at all. It's actually yellow wood sorrel. And all three of these are actually highly edible and high in protein and vitamins and minerals. Went down the wrong pipe. But some can be poisonous, so know exactly what plant you're dealing with before you start eating anything that you didn't plant in your garden. That and more when we come back. And we start our trip out with mugwort, which is a invasive weed. It's known as riverside wormwood. It's a member of the daisy family. It looks like ragweed. It also is an allergen for people that suffer allergies. It was smoked, and it was also drank in a tea, and it also is an ingredient in absinthe, the distilled beverage that has been illegal in America for years, but now it's not. But the thujone in the plant is toxic at certain levels, so you don't want to eat too much of it. Lamb's quarter is known as wild spinach. It also is known as pigweed. Most people know it as lamb's quarter. Highly nutritious. It takes the place of spinach during the Depression, and it can be handled just like spinach. It can be boiled, steamed, stir fry, however you like. It's a good weed. It's one of those ones that carried a lot of families through the Depression that didn't have a lot of money. It is highly invasive, however, you have to keep a check in your garden because it will take over in no time flat. But it is one of those very useful weeds and very plentiful. Hairy bittercress is one of those little garden invasive weeds that come up in early spring, but it is edible. You can cook it, you can eat it raw. A lot of people put it in salads, not so much anymore. It's mostly the old timers used to eat it, but it is one of those little plants that you see all the time and you just don't know what the name is. Dead nettle or red dead nettle, whatever you know it as, it's in your garden and around most disturbed areas. It gets its name from the nettle family, the stinging nettles that have little hairs that'll sting you. This doesn't have the hairs, and that's why they call it dead nettle, because there's no stinging hairs. It can be eaten in salads, and how you can identify it, it has square stems, and anybody that knows plants know that there's a plant that looks similar that has a round stem, and you want to steer clear of those because they are toxic. Now these have like an earthy flavor, and I don't recommend eating them, but it is perfectly safe. No doubt any garden in America and also any field or wild areas that have been disturbed, you know about wild onions. They smell like onions. They taste like onions. The roots, however, are a little more woodier than onions, but they can be cooked just the same. And the stems, they can be used as green onions, chopped up, alternative for green onions, and very cheap too. You can go outside of your house at any time of the year and dig them up and use them however you want. A great flavoring. Yellow wood sorrel, that's what I started eating at the very beginning. It's known as lemon clover or mock clover. It has a lemony flavor, and it is nutritious. It has vitamin C and a lot of other minerals that you wouldn't think a weed would have. And I usually pull out of my garden. Some people do let it grow, and they use it in salads, and you can use it in stir fry. I guess a lot of people are doing stir fry out there. But it is nutritious, and it is worthwhile to have around, and it gives that little tang to salads. But you don't want to eat too much of it, because there is an element in there that eating too much can upset your stomach. The bane of any homeowner is definitely the dandelion if you have a nice lawn. But did you know that every part of this plant is edible? The flowers can be made into dandelion wine, the sprouts, the leaves, and the stems can be used in salads. It can also be cooked, and it's highly nutritious. And here's something you probably didn't know either. If you were to dig up the plant, you know that long root, as you'll see here in a second, it can be dried and then baked in the oven and used as a substitute for coffee. Imagine that. It doesn't taste like coffee. It tastes more like that stuff Postum that they used to put out in the 60s. But back in the Civil War, that's what they used, and highly tasty. Clover is one of those great weeds that you never want to pull out of your garden because it grabs nitrogen from the air and deposits it right into the soil itself. Highly edible from the root to the stem to the leaves to the flower. Every part of the plant is edible, highly nutritious, and it doesn't taste that good. I gotta admit, outside of the flowers, every part about the plant just tastes way too earthy, but it is highly nutritious. Creeping Charlie is one of them strong scented medicinal herbs that you find growing vigorously in your garden. It has been used to flavor all kinds of stuff over the years. Meats, to soups, to stews, you name it, it's been used. I don't care for the flavor though. Anybody that's ever encountered Greenbriar never had much nice to say about it, but it can be used as an asparagus substitute. The little tendrils that come out of the ground can be cut, boiled, and eaten just like asparagus. Most of the part is woody, but when it first comes out of the ground and emerges, it's highly edible. The berries, however, I wouldn't eat. They could make you sick, and they don't taste too well. Birds love them, and that's how the catbriar or greenbriar gets spread around. So next time you see one growing in your garden early, pull it out, cook it, and give it a try. Probably one of the nicest weeds you'll ever come across is wild violets or wild violas, they're also known as. They pop up everywhere. In my garden and in my backyard, they're everywhere. Birds must spread the seed. I'm not sure how they propagate, but they're out there. So next time you're pulling them out of your yard or garden, give them a shot. See what they taste like. I've never tried them, nor do I ever want to, but why not? Burnside Speedwell, one of the nicest looking ground covers that's a weed. Little light blue colors. The plant itself was used as a medicinal herb back in the medieval times, and no longer used, obviously, because we have modern medicine. But don't eat it, it's poison. Ash tree is actually an invasive weed that turns into a tree. Don't eat it. You can make a baseball bat out of it, but the reason I show this is because it also mimics a walnut tree, so don't confuse the two. Indian strawberry or mock strawberry is actually an inedible plant. It looks like a regular strawberry, but it's really not. It's real fleshy and woody. Although it's not poisonous or toxic, it's definitely not something you'd want to eat. But they do fool a lot of kids from time to time. English ivy is so invasive. Oh my goodness, I don't know who would want to plant this in their yard, but it is poison. Thus, rabbits and deer, they do not touch the stuff. And that's why you see it out there in your backyards. And once it starts growing, it'll take a hold on everything. It'll grow over houses, trees, buildings, old vehicles, you name it, it'll grow over it. Sweet autumn clematis, or clematis, whatever you call it, a beautiful, sweet-smelling plant once it starts flowering. It's not really edible, it's not toxic, but there's no part of the plant that you'd want to eat. Virginia creeper is something that everybody mistakes for poison ivy, but it's not. The plant itself is not poison, but the berries, however, are. The berries are very toxic to humans. Animals and birds can eat it to their heart content and nothing will happen. But these are invasive plants. And we end with the very worst plant of all, poison ivy or poison oak. Every part of the plant is poisonous, especially the berries. Do not touch this plant, obviously. It's one of the worst plants you can have in your garden, and have it removed professionally, but get rid of it however you can. Well, there you have it. My weeding is done for the day, and I hope this has inspired you to research some of the plants in and around your garden that you didn't plant. It's always good, if not for yourself, but for your pet's sake, to know exactly what plants are growing around your garden and home, just in case your pets accidentally eat these plants. Until next time, this is Mike Dupree. I'll see you in the garden. Oh yeah, don't forget, please subscribe.